They laughed before she even said a word. A billionaire leaned back in his leather chair, smirking at the young waitress standing before him. "A waitress doing math? That's a new one," he said, voice dripping with mockery. The room erupted with laughter, the kind that cuts deep. Phones were already out recording. 8 powerful men dining in luxury, enjoying their favorite kind of entertainment, watching someone who had no power at all being humiliated. Lena picked up the crumpled paper that had been thrown at her chest. Her hands trembled, but she didn't look away. "Tell you what," the billionaire said, waving his wine glass. "Solve that and I'll give you $3 million. If you can even read it," more laughter. One of the guests added, "She probably thinks algebra is some kind of dessert." The moment stretched. Lena's fingers smoothed the wrinkled paper. The equation written on it looked like chaos to everyone in that room. Strange symbols, endless numbers, an impossible problem. But to her it looked like something else, something familiar. Before we see what she said next, ask yourself, have you ever been judged before you even got the chance to speak? Because this woman, standing in a black apron, holding that crumpled page, was about to rewrite every assumption in that room. But to understand how she got here, you need to know what happened just 3 hours earlier. At exactly 6:30, Lena Reyes pushed open the staff door of the Silver Chateau. She'd done it every night for 8 months. Same uniform, same route, same quiet invisibility. The restaurant wasn't listed online. It didn't have to be. It was where billionaires whispered deals, where senators toasted secrets, where money spoke its own language. And Lena? She was just the one pouring the champagne. She signed in at the security desk, flashed her worn ID, and walked down the hallway where soft jazz floated through gold-trimmed speakers. The air smelled like power. Expensive, rehearsed, suffocating. Her locker sat in the back, number 27. Inside it was a folded envelope with a faded blue crest. Oxford University. 2 years old, slightly yellowed, but she couldn't throw it away. It was her acceptance letter. PhD in pure mathematics, specializing in number theory. She touched it gently. It used to remind her who she was. Now it only reminded her who she used to be. Next to the letter was a photo. Her younger brother Ben smiling in a hospital bed, 3 months after surgery. His thumbs up, weak but proud. The operation had saved his life. It had also ended hers, the one she'd been building. Lena closed her eyes, breathing through the ache. She was 28. She'd been 6 months away from her doctorate when Ben collapsed from a rare heart condition. The treatment wasn't covered by insurance. They'd said he wouldn't survive the year without it. Her research stipend was $27,000 a year. Not nearly enough. So she left Oxford in one night. No goodbye, no ceremony, just an email and a promise. Family first, always. The Silver Chateau paid $45 an hour, more with tips, enough to pay off hospital bills if she worked doubles. She told herself it was temporary, 2 years maybe. Then she'd go back. But every month, Oxford felt farther away, and the math that once filled her mind had turned to ghosts she couldn't quiet. "Reyes," a voice snapped from the doorway. It was Marcus, her manager, clipboard in hand. "You're on the Armitage table tonight. Private dining. 8 guests, VIPs. His tone shifted, quieter now. "Listen, Lena, Mr. Armitage. He's difficult. Likes to play games with the staff. Last month, he made a busboy sing the national anthem. Just stay calm. Stay invisible. Let him laugh if he wants." "Got it?" She nodded. Invisibility was her specialty. Marcus left and Lena opened her locker again. Tucked in the corner was her secret. A black notebook filled with equations. Pages of numbers, scribbles, notes, the kind of work she used to do every day. She'd written them during bathroom breaks, during quiet minutes between shifts. Because even when she was serving champagne, her mind never stopped chasing patterns, symmetry, the beautiful logic of the universe. She ran her finger across the ink, then closed it softly. 5 minutes until her shift started. She adjusted her apron, tied her hair neatly, and whispered to her reflection, "Just get through tonight." But that night was waiting to change everything. The hallway outside the private dining suite was alive with energy, laughter, the low hum of confident voices, the clink of crystal. Through the door, she caught fragments of conversation. "I've had my R&D team on this for a year. Best PhDs I could buy. Still nothing. $10 million burned and not an inch of progress." The words froze her in place. R&D. PhDs, equations. She knew that language. It had once been hers, she shook it off. Not her world anymore. She knocked, opened the door, and stepped inside. The room was stunning. Long mahogany table, gold chandeliers, and the kind of silence that only old money carries. 8 men in tailored suits. Watches worth more than her life. At the head sat Victor Armitage, mid-50s, silver hair, sharp eyes, a man used to being the smartest in every room. Lena moved quietly, setting down the first course. They barely noticed her. The problem combines number theory with cryptographic algorithms, Armitage was saying. Solve it, and my company owns the next generation of digital security. A $50 billion market. A younger guest laughed. You're telling me your future depends on a math problem? Armitage smirked. Depends on the right mind solving it. Lena's hands trembled slightly as she poured the wine. Number theory, cryptography. Those were her worlds and her obsession, her unfinished dream. She tried to steady her breath. Will there be anything else, sir? She asked quietly. We're fine, Armitage said, not looking at her. She turned to leave, but her heart was racing. She knew that problem, not in theory, not vaguely. It was eerily close to her doctoral work. It couldn't be. She told herself it didn't matter. She was a waitress, not a scholar, but fate wasn't done with her yet. Lena returned to the kitchen, heart still pounding. She set down the serving tray and leaned against the counter for a breath that never seemed to come. The laughter from the private suite echoed faintly down the hall, that same expensive, careless laughter that filled the world of men who never feared consequence. She told herself to focus, to stay invisible, to finish the night. When she entered again with the next course, the air in the room had shifted. Armitage was standing, sleeves rolled, papers spread across the table like a battlefield. This, he said proudly, tapping the equations, is the problem destroying my budget. Lena's eyes flickered to the papers. She hadn't meant to look, but curiosity was a reflex she couldn't kill. Symbols danced across the page, dense, complex, and hauntingly familiar. Her breath caught. She knew this equation. Not vaguely. Not sort of. Exactly. It was hers, a variant of her own dissertation framework, the one she'd built from scratch 2 years ago. Modified Clear's conjecture, merged with elliptic curve theory, prime distribution overlay. The structure was unmistakable. The equation she had spent years of her life developing was sitting on a billionaire's table, treated like a party trick. Her fingers went cold. Armitage noticed the stillness in her hands. His grin sharpened like a blade. Something wrong, waitress? She blinked. No, sir, but that was all the opening he needed. Gentlemen, he said, his voice dripping with amusement. I just had the most entertaining idea. The room went quiet, every guest turning toward Lena. This young lady, Armitage continued, has been standing here listening to us struggle with the most advanced mathematical equation in my company's history. Let's see how much she's absorbed. Lena's pulse thundered in her ears. He gestured toward her like she was an exhibit. What's your name? Lena, sir. Lena. Lovely name. He smiled without warmth. Tell me, Lena, do you understand any of what you've heard tonight? She could lie. She could say no. Walk away. But a flicker of defiance burned inside her. Some, sir. The table erupted with laughter. Some, Armitage repeated. Did you go to college? Some college, yes. Some college, he said again, savoring it. Gentlemen, we have ourselves a part-time scholar. More laughter. Phones lifted again. Someone whispered, This'll be gold for social media. Armitage wasn't done. Tell us, Lena, what did you study in your some college? Mathematics, she said. The laughter nearly shook the table. Oh, this is rich, a guest wheezed. She studied math and now serves steak. That's education for you. Armitage raised his hand for silence, pretending to be noble. Let's not mock her enthusiasm. In fact, I'm a generous man. Let's give her a chance to prove herself. He picked up the papers. This equation has cost me $10 million and 18 months of research. The best minds at Stanford, MIT, Oxford, none of them can solve it. But perhaps, he said, smirking, our mathematically inclined waitress can. He stepped closer and held the papers toward her. I'll make it simple. Solve this equation and I'll personally give you $3 million. Phones went up again. Laughter spread through the room. This is insane, someone whispered. He's offering millions to a waitress. She won't even understand it, another said. Lena stared at the paper. Her throat was dry, her heartbeat steady now in a strange, dangerous calm. Go on, Armitage said. Show us what community college taught you. She looked up at him, meeting his eyes for the first time. Do you have a pen? The laughter faltered. What? A pen, sir. Or a tablet, if you prefer. He blinked, then barked a laugh. Oh, she's serious. Wonderful. Here. He handed her his tablet with a smirk. Show us your genius, Miss Mathematics. Lena set the papers beside the tablet, her fingers gliding across the glass. She opened a note app, wrote a few symbols, paused, then began to write faster. At first, the guests were still laughing, but one by one, the laughter faded. The rhythm of her movements was too confident, too precise. What's she doing? Someone whispered, another leaned closer. I think she's actually solving it, Armitage frowned, crossing his arms. She's pretending. Lena's voice broke the silence, calm and clear. This equation isn't what you think it is. The room stilled. It's a trap equation, she continued, still writing. Your team's been approaching it computationally, assuming it diverges at infinity. It doesn't. A man in glasses leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Wait, what did she just say? Lena circled a section on the screen. The convergence point isn't infinite. It resolves at a finite iteration. That's why your algorithms keep failing. Armitage took a step forward. You're bluffing, she ignored him. Her fingers flew across the screen, lines of numbers forming intricate proofs. The key is hidden in the prime distribution pattern. You're missing it because you're focusing on the recursive sequence. But if you isolate the residue classes, the man with glasses suddenly stood up. She's right. What? Armitage snapped. She's right, the man repeated. She just identified the flaw in your base assumption. Lena kept writing, her focus unbroken. Iteration 39, she said softly. That's your convergence point. From there, the encryption seed stabilizes. Your entire system bottleneck dissolves. The room was silent now, except for the faint scratch of stylus against glass. She stopped, lifted her head, and met Armitage's eyes. There, she said. It's done. He stared at her. You're joking. 53 seconds, she said simply. The man with glasses snatched the tablet from her hand, scanning the equations. His mouth fell open. My God, she's right. Every step is correct. The others crowded around. Shock spread like fire. Who are you? Someone whispered. Lena straightened her posture. I was a PhD candidate at Oxford. Number theory, elliptic curves. I left when my brother got sick. The words hung in the air like truth none of them could touch. Armitage's face drained of color. You left Oxford? For what? For a job that paid enough to keep him alive, she said quietly. The laughter was gone now. The only sound was the brittle silence of shame. One man finally muttered, She's not just right. She's a genius. Armitage looked at the tablet, then at Lena, and for the first time that night, the man who thought he owned the world didn't know what to say. The arrogance on his face cracked, replaced by something smaller, fear maybe, and all Lena could think was how fast everything had changed. 53 seconds, and the world had finally seen her. Armitage's suite was silent, the kind of silence that follows an earthquake. Every man in that room was staring at Lena as if the laws of the universe had just bent before their eyes. The waitress who'd been invisible all night had done the impossible, and done it faster than anyone thought humanly possible. Dr. Howard, the man in glasses, was still bent over the tablet, his voice trembling. It's flawless, he muttered. Not a single error. Her logic is airtight. One of the guests scoffed weakly, trying to regain control of the moment. No, that's not possible. It has to be coincidence. She must have seen it before. Lena stood perfectly still. I saw it before, she said quietly. Because it's mine. The words hit harder than any insult thrown at her that night. Armitage's head snapped up. What do you mean it's yours? I developed that framework during my research, she said. It was part of my doctoral work. The same structure, the same variables. You said your team couldn't solve it. That's because they're looking at my unfinished model. For a long, disbelieving moment, Armitage said nothing. Then slowly he sank back into his chair. You're saying I paid my research team millions to study your abandoned dissertation? Yes, Lena said softly. And they still couldn't see what was right in front of them. A low murmur rippled through the room. The men who'd laughed earlier were now looking everywhere but at her. Dr. Howard looked up from the tablet. "Mr. Armitage, I need to verify this." He pulled a slim laptop from his case, fingers flying over the keys. The screen lit his face and his expression began to shift, skepticism melting into shock, then awe. "She's right," he said again, louder this time. "Completely right. I just checked it against our existing models. Her solution doesn't just work, it corrects the fundamental flaw in our entire system." The room broke into whispers. "You're kidding," one of them said. "That can't be real." "It's real," Howard said firmly. "She found the finite convergence. We were wasting resources chasing infinity." He turned to Lena, eyes wide with genuine respect. "You just solved a problem that's been tormenting the best cryptographers in the world." Lena met his gaze. "Then maybe the best cryptographers should have looked in different places." The line hit like thunder. Armitage's face went pale. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "that you solved what my company has been bleeding over for 18 months. In under a minute." 53 seconds, Lena said. Dr. Howard nodded. "She's telling the truth. I've verified it 3 times. The proof is complete." The tension broke in waves. Disbelief, guilt, something close to shame. One man stammered, "You're really from Oxford?" "I was," Lena said. "I had to leave when my brother got sick. His surgery wasn't covered. I took this job because I needed money fast." Another whispered, "You gave up a doctorate."
For your family?
Lena nodded once. "I'd do it again." The table was silent. No one laughed now. No one dared. Dr. Howard looked up from his laptop. "Mr. Armitage," he said, "you owe her $5 million. Armitage blinked. $5 million? "You made the offer," Howard reminded him. "In front of 8 witnesses." Armitage looked down at his phone, then back at Lena. "You really expect me to transfer $5 million just because I solved your problem?" Lena interrupted. Her tone wasn't angry, just tired. "And you said you'd pay me for it." Dr. Howard straightened. "You will, Victor. She earned every cent. Her proof will save you another $10 million in R&D and make you hundreds of millions in the market." The room filled with murmurs again. Men who had mocked her minutes ago were suddenly trying to calculate what her mind was worth. Armitage exhaled shakily, the swagger gone from his voice. "You understand what you've done, don't you? You just changed the foundation of my company's encryption system. That kind of insight—" He stopped, voice cracking. "I don't even have words." Lena's lips curved slightly. "You don't need words. Just integrity." He stared at her, then nodded slowly. "You'll have your money." He typed quickly on his phone. A notification buzzed in Lena's pocket. She pulled it out. The screen glowed. Deposit received, $5,000. For the first time that night, her hands trembled, not with fear, but relief. Armitage leaned back, his voice quiet now. "That's what I promised." "But it isn't what you're worth." The others turned to him. "What are you saying?" He looked at Lena. "You didn't just solve an equation. You solved me. You showed me how blind I've been." Lena's brow furrowed. "I didn't do this to teach you anything. You wanted a solution. I gave you one." "Yes," he said, nodding slowly. "But I'd like to give you something more." Lena hesitated, unsure whether this was another trap. "I want to offer you a position," Armitage said. "Chief Research Director. $500,000 a year, full freedom to continue your work, equity in the company, and if you'll help me build it, a scholarship fund. For people like you. People the world overlooks." Dr. Howard smiled faintly. "Now that," he said, "might be the smartest thing you've ever proposed." Lena didn't answer right away. Her gaze dropped to her phone, to the numbers glowing on the screen. $5 million that could fix everything she'd broken to survive. "I'll think about it," she said finally. "You've earned that right," Howard said quietly. As she turned to leave, Armitage's voice stopped her. "Miss Reyes," she looked back. "What you did tonight, it wasn't just mathematics. It was justice." She held his gaze for a heartbeat, then walked out. Behind her, in that glittering room full of men who measured worth in money, the sound of applause began again. Not polite, not rehearsed, but real. For the first time in years, Lena felt seen. The applause followed her down the hall like an echo of everything she'd lost and everything she'd just reclaimed. Outside the private suite, Lena finally exhaled. The hallway felt different now, lighter somehow, though her knees still trembled beneath her uniform. She reached into her pocket and checked her phone again, just to be sure the message was real. $5 million. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a trick. It was done. She pressed her palm over the screen as if afraid the number might vanish. For a moment she just stood there, caught between disbelief and laughter. Then slowly the truth began to sink in. Her brother's bills gone. The debt that shadowed every decision gone. The door to Oxford, the one she'd closed 2 years ago, open again. The door behind her swung open. Marcus stood there, wide-eyed, out of breath. "Lena, what the hell just happened? Mr. Armitage's assistant just told me you solved some math problem, and he transferred you millions of dollars. Tell me that's a joke." "It's not," she said softly. He stared at her like he'd never really seen her before. $5 million? For real?" "For real." Marcus rubbed his face with both hands. "I don't even know what to say, Lena. I had no idea you weren't supposed to," she said. "It made things easier." He shook his head slowly. "No, it made things wrong." For the first time she smiled, a small, tired smile that came from somewhere deep. Maybe now it's right. She started toward the back exit, but Marcus called after her. "Armitage told the owner he's donating $50,000 to fund education for the staff. Full tuition if anyone wants to study while working here. You did that. You changed his mind." Lena stopped the words, catching her off guard. "He's serious?" "Already wiring the money," Marcus said. "And he told me to tell you thank you." Lena didn't answer. She just nodded once, eyes bright, before stepping into the cool night air. The city stretched before her like a promise. Lights flickered on the wet pavement, each one reflecting a possibility she hadn't dared imagine in months. She walked without direction, her thoughts tumbling faster than her steps. Her phone buzzed again, an unknown number. She answered. "Hello?" A warm voice came through. "Lena Reyes?" "Yes. This is Dr. Howard. I just wanted to say thank you for what you did tonight. You've changed more than one life, you know. I spoke with the mathematics board at Oxford. If you're ready to return, they'll reinstate you immediately. Full funding. I'll personally vouch for your work." Her breath caught. "You can do that?" "I already did," he said gently. "You belong there. The world needs your mind back where it shines." Lena didn't speak for a long moment. Her eyes blurred as she looked up at the city lights. "Thank you, Doctor. One more thing," he added. "Armitage meant what he said about that position. Whether you take it or not, he's launching something called the Hidden Mind Initiative, scholarships and mentorships for people working service jobs who dream of higher education. He asked if you'd help design it." Lena swallowed hard. "I'll think about it." "That's all we can ask," Howard said softly. "Take care of yourself, Lena. And congratulations, Doctor." The line clicked off. "Doctor." She stood there on the sidewalk, tears she didn't mean to shed running cold down her face. She wasn't a doctor yet, but now, finally, she could be again. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. "This one from Ben. You okay?" She called him immediately. He picked up on the first ring. "Lena, it's almost midnight." "You never call this late." "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," she said, laughing through tears. "Everything's finally right. What happened?" "I solved something tonight," she said. "Something big. How big?" "Big enough to pay off every bill. Big enough to send me back to school. Big enough that we don't have to worry again." On the other end of the line, Ben went quiet. Then softly, "You did it, didn't you? You actually did it." "Yeah," she whispered. "I did." He laughed, the sound pure and light. "My sister's a genius. I always told you that." Lena leaned against a street lamp, smiling into the dark. "Your sister's lucky," she said. "No," Ben said firmly. "Your sister's brilliant. And now everyone finally knows it." They talked for a long while about the hospital, about her leaving, about everything she'd given up. Ben kept saying the same thing, "Go back. Finish what you started. Don't let anything stop you now." By the time the call ended, her decision was clear. She wasn't just going back. She was going to build something no one could ignore. The next morning, Lena woke to sunlight cutting through her curtains and an inbox full of messages. Job offers, scholarships, invitations to speak, news outlets wanting her story. But what caught her attention wasn't from a company or a journalist. It was from Armitage himself. "Take all the time you need. The offer stands. Let's build something that finds more minds like yours." She closed her eyes, breathing in slowly. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel like a burden. It felt wide open. She packed her old notebooks into a bag that afternoon along with the envelope from Oxford she'd once tucked away in shame. The paper was worn, the edges soft from years of regret, but as she looked at it now, it didn't feel like a reminder of failure. It felt like a key. She whispered to herself, "Let's finish this." And when she stepped outside again, the world felt different. She was done serving tables. Now she was serving something greater. 4 months later, Lena stood in front of a glass wall overlooking the skyline. The city glowed beneath her, streaks of gold and silver cutting through the dusk. Her name gleamed on the plaque beside the office door. Dr. Lena Reyes, Director of Innovation. The title still didn't feel real. Every time she saw it, a small part of her wanted to laugh, as if someone might walk in and tell her there'd been a mistake. But no one did. They only came to ask for her thoughts, her insight, her ideas. Down below, the research floor buzzed with energy. 50 bright minds tackling new encryption frameworks, algorithms, and theories. Among them were 4 faces she'd handpicked herself. A barista who'd once balanced equations on napkins during breaks. A cab driver who taught himself advanced coding through online tutorials. A single mother who'd never been to college but could visualize complex geometries instinctively. And a janitor who saw patterns in data no machine could predict. The Hidden Mind Initiative was no longer an idea. It was alive, funded, and thriving. What started with a single promise in a dining room of arrogance had become a movement, one that gave invisible brilliance a name, a place, and a future. Lena walked through the lab, her staff greeting her with warmth that felt nothing like fear. Every time she saw them, she thought of the night she almost gave up being who she was meant to be. When she reached her desk, her phone buzzed. A video call. Oxford. She answered, and the familiar voice of Professor Elliot, her old advisor, filled the room. "Dr. Reyes," he said with a grin, "I must say that title suits you beautifully." "I can't believe it's official," she said, laughing softly. "Oh, it's more than official," he replied. "Your thesis has been published in 3 international journals. You've changed the way we understand prime convergence models. Do you realize what that means?" She smiled. "It means I finally finished what I started." "More than that," he said. "It means you've started something none of us saw coming." After the call ended, she sat back and stared at the skyline again. So much had changed. Oxford had reinstated her, yes, but she'd chosen to stay with the initiative for now, working remotely, guiding others, building something bigger than herself. Her brother Ben was thriving too. His latest message glowed on her screen. "Started classes at MIT today. Wish you could see it. Proud of you always." She read it twice before replying. "Proud of you more. Keep building, little brother." Her eyes lingered on the message, the way the words connected everything they'd both survived. That evening, she returned to the Silver Chateau, not as staff, but as a guest of honor. The restaurant looked the same, but the energy was different. The same chandeliers sparkled above, the same gold walls gleamed, but the people sitting at those tables now weren't billionaires trading power. They were servers, drivers, receptionists, and janitors, all recipients of the scholarship fund she'd helped create. The applause started as she entered. Not polite or staged, real, grateful, full of life. When the room quieted, Lena stepped forward. 4 months ago, she said, I was serving dinner in this room. Someone threw paper at me, laughed at me, and told me I'd never understand what was written on it. Tonight I stand here because I decided not to believe them. The audience listened, silent, focused. I didn't solve that equation because I'm special, she continued. I solved it because I'd already done the work. Years of work. The world didn't see it because I was serving drinks instead of teaching at a board. But brilliance doesn't disappear just because no one's watching. It waits. She paused, scanning the faces before her. Maybe some of you have been told you're too old, too poor, too busy, too late. But I'm standing here to tell you you're not. You just need someone to look closer. A young man in the crowd wearing a hotel uniform raised his hand. Dr. Reyes, I didn't even finish high school. I've been reading about quantum algorithms online. Can someone like me apply? She smiled, walking toward him. What's your name? Jordan. Then yes, Jordan. Especially someone like you. She handed him an application form. You don't need a degree to have a mind that matters. The room erupted in applause again, louder this time. Some were crying. Others stood cheering, clapping, believing for the first time that their own dreams might not be impossible. Later that night, Lena stepped out onto the terrace alone. The city wind tangled her hair as she looked down at the streets below. It wasn't the money or the title that filled her chest. It was the memory of that moment when everything turned. When she'd been humiliated and she'd chosen not to break. Behind her, the crowd inside was still talking, still alive with hope. Lena whispered to herself, maybe this is what brilliance is supposed to do. Not just be seen, but help others be seen too. Her phone buzzed one last time. A message from Armitage. The fun just doubled. Let's find every hidden mind we can. She smiled at the screen, slipped the phone into her pocket, and turned back toward the warm light spilling from the dining room. That night, as the applause rose again from the people she'd once served, Dr. Lena Reyes finally understood what it meant to be free, not just from debt or judgment, but from invisibility itself. The girl who once picked up a crumpled paper for someone else was now handing out possibilities for everyone else to hold. And somewhere, far from that golden restaurant, another unseen genius was probably sitting under dim light, scribbling notes on the back of a receipt, dreaming. This time the world might finally see them. The next morning, the headlines were everywhere. Waitress turns millionaire genius overnight. Dr. Lena Reyes redefines talent discovery. Hidden Mind Initiative launches worldwide. Lena didn't even open most of them. She didn't need to. The story wasn't about her anymore. It was about what her story had started. In less than half a year, the initiative had spread far beyond the city. Universities were adapting the model. Companies were introducing blind entry problem challenges. No resumes, no degrees, just raw ability. People from coffee shops, call centers, and factory floors were solving equations, writing code, designing innovations that stunned the academic world. Every week, Lena's inbox filled with messages. Some from students who'd won scholarships, some from strangers who said her story made them try again, and one every Friday from Armitage, short, always respectful, still learning, still grateful. But the moment that truly broke her came one quiet afternoon in the new research wing that bore her name. She was reviewing a proposal from one of the scholarship recipients, a 19-year-old who used to work at a gas station. His research was raw but dazzling, fresh, untrained brilliance that saw beauty where formulas met chaos. She read his notes and smiled. A knock came at her door. When she looked up, Dr. Howard stood there with a folder under his arm. "You've been invited to speak at the Global Science Assembly next month," he said. "They want you to open the conference." Lena froze. "The Global Assembly? They're calling your theorem the Reyes convergence now," Howard said proudly. "Your works changed the direction of modern encryption." She tried to answer, but her throat tightened. The girl who once balanced trays in silence was now being asked to speak to the world's greatest minds. That night, she couldn't sleep. She walked through the empty office, passing the rows of desks where once invisible people now chased impossible ideas. Through the glass walls, she could see the city below, alive, restless, shining. She thought of Ben, who would be flying in from MIT to hear her speak. She thought of her mother, who had passed before ever seeing this. And she thought of the moment when Armitage had thrown that paper at her chest, when she'd decided not to bend. She whispered into the quiet, "You don't get to define me." The next month, she stood on stage before 1,000 people, the world's brightest scientists and leaders among them. Cameras flashed. The crowd hushed as she began. "4 months ago," she said, "I was standing in a restaurant holding a crumpled page that someone threw at me. They told me I didn't belong in the conversation, that I didn't look like brilliance." The auditorium was still. They were wrong, not just about me, but about all of us. Brilliance has no dress code. Genius doesn't ask for permission. It's not born in privilege. It's built in persistence. She paused as the words sank in. "I didn't just solve an equation that night. I solved a question I didn't know I'd been asking my whole life. What makes someone worthy of being seen? The answer is simple: everyone." The applause started slow, a ripple that grew into a storm. Cameras caught her smile, calm, humble, certain. Later, as the hall emptied, Dr. Howard walked up beside her. "You've changed the world, Lena." She looked at him and shook her head gently. "No, the world was full of people like me. I just showed them the mirror." Outside, under the golden lights of the Capitol, she found Ben waiting. He ran to her, lifting her off her feet. "Dr. Reyes," he said proudly. "You did it." She laughed, tears in her eyes. "No, Ben. We did it." They walked together through the city that night. A city that once ignored her now carried her story on every billboard. Yet all Lena felt was quiet peace. Back home, she opened the same black notebook she'd kept hidden in her locker months ago. Inside were old equations, worn pages, and a single blank one at the end. She picked up a pen and wrote slowly across it, the beginning of everything new. Then she closed it and looked out the window. In some distant diner or workshop, someone else was staring at a problem nobody believed they could solve. Somewhere, another hidden mind was waiting to be seen. And as long as she lived, Lena Reyes would make sure they would be.